I got a new camera where I just got to set up in my vent. It's magnet, so I have to hold it in my hand, so I'm not violating the law anymore in the great state of Georgia. All right, my friends, it's going to take a few minutes when I'm dropping. I just got dropped up, done dropping one of my girls off at actually my high school girl at lacrosse practice. So I'm going to take a few minutes to tell you what you should do 2 years before your retirement date. All right, so this is going to sound almost too simplistic, but oh man, it works so well. All right, you need some cash. You need some cash because cash is a valuable asset, especially in a market decline. So everyone talks about the sequence of return risk, and I agree with that 100%. There is something called the sequence of return risk, i.e. you retire into a down market. That's not good. You don't want to retire into a down market because your accounts could be worth 30% less than they were just a year previously. And if you do that into a down market, you can be in a bad place for sure. Because if you're taking money out of your portfolio when the portfolio is dropping by 20, 25, 30, 35%, not good. And we've seen this now twice in the last 20 years. We saw 2000, 2001, and 2002, and then we saw 2007, October to March 9th of 2009. Bad place to be for retirees. The only people who survived that were people who had either significant sources of pension income and Social Security or just other income for which they didn't have to pull from their portfolio. But also it's people who had cash. You know, everyone always bags on cash. You're not making any money. You're losing money to inflation. Yeah, but you're also, but it's a hedge. I mean, it's literally the purest of, it's the purest hedge there is. Markets go down, you're in golden place. Markets go up, yeah, it sucks. The cash doesn't perform well relative to the markets, but guess what? That's why you have stocks. And so anyway, you want some cash because we want those 2 years when you first retire, which is when you're transitioning into retirement, to be as stress-free as possible because you no longer have an income stream. You're gonna be freaking out. You're not gonna know. You're like, I'm telling you, man, I'm kind of there right now. I'm pulling off my portfolio as we speak. And it's scary because you're like, what happens if? And if your portfolio starts dropping beyond this set number, you're like, what do I do next? And now I'm 48 and a half. I can always go back to a job. But you know, if you're 63 or something like that, it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be a lot harder. So the last 2 years, let's just say you make $50,000 a year and you're putting in, I don't know, 10% a year into your 401k. All right, for simplicity. And we're going to say your company's put another 10% a year. So that's what? That's $10,000 a year going into your 401k. What I would suggest is put that money into cash. You still want to take advantage of your company's match. You still want to take advantage of your own contributions for sure. But I would have that money going into cash as a stopgap that you can use later on if the markets do decline against you. Does that make sense? So you still want to take advantage of the employer match, absolutely, but you want to take advantage of the employer match into a cash account for which you're going to draw on the minute you leave separate from service. And so the last 2 years, even 3 years, maybe too long, probably 3 years, start putting every single penny of excess cash, whatever you're investing. I don't care if it's your 401k, your IRA, your taxable brokerage account, I don't care. Put your investments, your liquid cash that you're investing into things, into a cash account and build that puppy up. Absolutely, absolutely. I would love for you to have 2 to 3 years of living expenses inside a cash account. So what I would also suggest, going back to that guy with $50,000, and by the way, for you out there, when I say guys, all inclusive, guys and ladies too, okay? So don't be offended. I don't want, it's just way too thin skin nowadays in the United States. Way too thin skin for how good we have it. All right, so if you're that guy with $50,000 and you're scoring away 10% a year, your company's putting in 10% a year, that's gonna be $10,000 a year going into your cash account on your 401k. So that'd be $20,000. I'd like to have more than that. So what I would do is within the next 2 years, I would sell enough of my equities to have, essentially, I mean, depends on what your holdings are, but man, if you're gonna spend $30,000 a year in income, that's what it's gonna take for you to live on, $30,000. So we know the first year, you're gonna have $10,000 going into your 401k cash, because $5,000 from you, $5,000 from your employer. The next year, you're gonna have another $10,000 going into cash, $5,000 from you, $5,000 from your employer. That's $20,000, but ultimately we want $60,000 in cash. Does that make sense? So let's just say you got $200,000 in your 401k. What I would do then is I'd take, so we need 60,000. We need 30,000 each year for 2 years. I'm comfortable with 2 years. Ideally I'd like 3 years, but you know, let's just say you got 200,000 bucks in there, and you need to have $60,000 of cash because you need $30,000 a year to live on. So we got 20,000 going in from your employer contributions and your own contributions. So that means we need to raise 40,000. What I would do is I'd sell 20,000 bucks a year for the next 2 years, or at least if you have a good stable value fund that pays you, the equivalent of a 10-year treasury, say 2.5, I'd sell 40,000 bucks of stocks right out the gate and put that in a stable value, so that way you can avoid a down market before you retire. So now let's just think about this. All right, so we know we're going to put 20,000 into our cash account before we retire. All right, but we need 40,000. So I got a nice stable value fund through my 401k. Let's just go ahead and sell $20,000 of equities in my Vanguard Total Stock Market Index Fund and dump it into cash account. So now I got 40,000 in cash that's not doing anything. You're not beating inflation. Well, no kidding, because I'm going to take that money out the minute I retire. Absolutely. So now I got that 40,000 situated. I got my 20,000 going in from my 401k deferrals, employer match and employee match. And now I wake up 2 years from now, I got $160,000 in equities, regardless of what the market does. I just don't care, because I got 160,000 bucks and I got at least 2 years of living expenses covered without even having to tap into Social Security. Now let's just say the market tumbles, 25% in one of those first 2 years of retirement. That stinks. I mean, thankfully you don't have to pull money out, but that stinks. That might revisit where you need to revisit should you take Social Security a little bit earlier. But at least you're able to defer taking Social Security for those 2 years, right? And those 2 years gave it an 8% boost plus cost of living adjustment. So that's not too bad. So you got right out of the gate, you got 2 years covered of expenses plus you also have your Social Security that you deferred for another 2 years, get the 8% a year plus the cost of living adjustment. So I think that's a good plan, and I think you should do it as you're looking at retiring 2 years out. Now, lastly, my preference is 3 years of cash. I say in my my 2-bucket retirement plan, 3 years of cash. And when I say cash, ladder CDs is fine, but my preference is 3 years of cash. So you have, if you look historically speaking, when the market declines, if you retire on October 2007, which is the worst possible time to retire, by the time the market was back is probably about 2012, if memory serves, maybe 2010. I think it was 2010 actually, when you factor in dividends. 2000, off the top of my head I can't remember, but generally speaking, a 3-year time frame is usually what it takes to get back even from the top to the bottom to the back even. And so if you can avoid selling assets while the market is doing its thing, going down and then working its way back up, and essentially covering for 3 years, generally speaking, you're going to be in a pretty good place. Not all the time. I mean, if you look at 2000, 2001, and 2, it didn't take 3 years. It took a little bit longer. But generally speaking, a bear market takes about 3 to 4 years or so to get back to even. So if you can avoid taking your cash out from your selling stocks to pay the bills for 3 years, you should be right back to where you're breaking even. Now, there's no guarantee of that for sure. We just don't know. But the issue that comes in is that you can always have too much cash where you're not very efficient. I mean, you have 5 years cash. I mean, look, I got no problem with that either, as long as it's in CDs, because I think CDs are a better replacement for bonds. But let's just say, we have 3 years cash. You got 1, 2, and 3 year CD. That works, in my opinion, much, much better than having everything in stocks and taking 4% or 5% or whatever it is a year, because you have your cash to do that. So you have a CD for 30,000, a CD for 30,000, and another CD for 30,000. That each one matures as you're spending money for that year. So January 1st, 2020, a CD just matured. Go take that puppy out, spend it for that year. January 1st, 2021, another $30,000 CD just matured with a little bit of interest. Go take that out, spend that, and the following year the same thing. So now I have 3 years covered, and even if January 1st, 2020, the market falls, by the time January 1st, 2022 rolls, 20, 23 rolls around, hopefully that market will be at least back to even, if not more. And even if it's a little bit underwater, at least I was able to get behind the brunt of the downfall. There's no guarantee, of course, but at least that would work where you're able to avoid getting hammered in the downfall while you're taking money out. Because the one thing we don't want you to do is we don't have to pull market money out of the account while the markets are down 25 to 30%. I mean, think about it. You got $100,000. You can take $5,000 a year off. That's 5%. Now the market's down 50%, just for simplicity. And this has happened now. So now your account's not worth $100,000. Now it's worth $50,000. You're still taking 5% a year off. What's your withdrawal percentage? Well, 5 goes into 50. 10, that's a 10% withdrawal rate, because it was 5%, 5 on 100,000. Now it's 5,000 on 50,000. That's a 10% withdrawal rate. No one will say that's a good. You're in a good place there. No one will. And so now what happens is you're taking. So now your $5,000 has actually reduced your portfolio to $45,000 And even if it grows at 10%, your 45,000 growing at 10% is only at 9,500. You take another 5,000, you can see it's a snowball effect that's just going to eat you alive. We want to avoid that at all costs, even if it means we're missing some upside on the markets. All right, so that's your 2-year retirement plan. Hope this helps. As always, you like what you see, smash. I hope you like the new setup here. I probably got to work on it a little bit and make that a little bit. No, I like that. Pretty good. Smash, subscribe, share, and say your comments down below, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.